What's up, guys? In this video, we're going to be using a tier list to grade each team's NFL draft performance. And let's face it, some teams completely blew it, while others totally deserve the grade I'm about to give them. So let's start out with the Colts. To me, the Colts had a really solid NFL draft. I really liked Adonai Mitchell, the wide receiver out of Texas. I feel like he can be a really good player. With the edge rusher out of UCLA that they drafted in the first round, Latu, I do worry about his injury history. Especially with a neck injury, I do worry about his longevity in the NFL. As far as addressing needs, the Colts didn't do a great job to me. They didn't draft a cornerback like I wanted them to. They didn't address the running back position. But I do feel like they got a lot of value out of this draft. To me, the Colts belong in the B tier. Alright, now let's talk about the Cowboys. And Cowboys fans, you might want to plug your ears for this one. The Cowboys are not all in. Jerry Jones is lying to you as a fan. I felt like trading back for Tyler Guyton was a horrible decision, and even though he has some upside, to me he's more of a project player than a day one starter. I kind of like the signings of Marshawn Nealon and Cooper Beebe. I thought those signings were okay, but I still feel like this draft left a lot to be desired for the Cowboys. Especially with the Eagles re-signing A.J. Brown on draft night. This is seriously what Jerry Jones means by all in.
I too have been here 23 years, and it is a reminder. I've been here when it was glory hole days, and I've been here when it wasn't. And so having said that, I want me some glory hole.
They didn't draft a running back late in the draft like I thought they should have, and there's no possible way that you can tell me that the Cowboys have a better roster than last season after a lackluster free agency in this pathetic draft. To me, the Cowboys are an easy F. Now let's move on and talk about the Raiders. If you're a Raiders fan, you just gotta be disappointed that you didn't land a quarterback in this draft. I was hoping for the Raiders that they would trade up and draft Michael Penix, and even though Brock Bowers is easily the best tight end in this draft, historically tight ends drafted in the first round just don't do well. I do like Gardner Minshew. He's got a fun play style. He's one of my favorite players to watch. But is he good enough to take the Raiders to a Super Bowl? I just don't think so. I do like how they beefed up the offensive line with guard Powers Johnson and the tackle Delmar Glaze, but failing to get Michael Penix or really upgrade that quarterback position really hurts this overall grade for me. To me, the Raiders belong in the C tier for this draft. Now let's talk about the Steelers. To me, the Steelers had a near perfect draft. I absolutely love the Troy Fautanu acquisition. He was one of my absolute favorite guards in the draft. I also love the Zach Frazier pick, the center out of Western Virginia. And I thought the wide receiver Roman Wilson was a highly underrated wide receiver going into this draft. So I thought that was an awesome pick for them. The more research I do on this draft for the Steelers, honestly, the more I like it. It really feels like a true Steelers draft that fans will look back on as a key moment in the team's history. I also feel like the players that they drafted really fit into Mike Tomlin's play style. They'll be really physical. I feel like overall the team did a fantastic job addressing needs. Let's see, where do we put the Steelers? Either A or S. Honestly, let's put them in S. I think they did a great job of addressing needs in this draft and just had a fantastic overall draft. When talking about the Commanders, I know my opinion is going to make a lot of people angry. And let's just rip the band-aid off. Let's put the Commanders where they belong for this draft. For this draft, I really feel like the Commanders belong in D tier.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man? Bro, I'm out, man.
I'll explain why. I really didn't like Jaden Daniels. I didn't want him for the Patriots, even if he was available. And I spoke to this a little bit in my last video, so I don't want to repeat myself. Make sure to check out that video in the description. But I did like the Jerzon Newton pick they had. He's a defensive tackle, and I think he has the skills to be good for them. I did like Sanderstil out of Michigan. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation. But I think he has the chance to be good. But other than that, I don't feel like the Commanders really address their needs, especially within the offensive line. I really felt like simply picking the wrong quarterback really brought down their grade for me. And I personally thought that Drake May, Michael Penix, and Bo Nix were better suited for the NFL based on what I saw in college. I'm not an analyst though, so I definitely could be wrong. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out when the season begins. And moving on, I really like this draft for the Buccaneers.
Than anybody. There he is again. We saw.
They picked Graham Barton in the first round, and he is an excellent center. This also addresses a huge need for them in run and pass blocking, and it's a position historically that has been really easy to draft. Usually what you see in college is exactly what you're going to get in the NFL, and I just love this pick for them. I also like the Jalen McMillan pick out of Washington and think he can be an immediate difference maker for this team. What brings their grades slightly down for me is that with the loss of Devin White and Shaq Barrett in free agency, I wish they would have focused a little bit more on the defensive side of the ball. Specifically, I wish they would have drafted a linebacker late in the draft. However, this is an increasingly offensive-minded league, and the Bucs, I feel like, made really good strides towards building their offense, and to me, this is an easy A. It really pains me to say this, but I do not think the Vikings had a good draft. This is another case to me of selecting the wrong quarterback and even trading up to do it. JJ McCarthy was one of the biggest question marks in this draft, and I do not like the amount of tape we have of him passing. I don't think it justifies trading up to get him. Especially trading with a Jets team who already had Aaron Rodgers, they probably weren't going to select a quarterback anyway. And for me, really the only saving grace for this draft for the Vikings is trading up to get Dallas Turner later in the first round. I think Dallas Turner is a fantastic pass rusher, and I love that they traded up to get him. I think he'll be a day one difference maker for this team, but just the JJ McCarthy pick and the way they traded up to get him really kills this grade for me. This is just my opinion, but I really think the Vikings could have done better in this draft, and it hurts me to say this because I actually like the Vikings. The Vikings are my favorite team in the NFC North, so I hope this works out. But as of now, I just can't get behind it. I think the Vikings are an easy D tier for this draft. I would put them ahead of the Commanders, though. When talking about the Carolina Panthers, I did not like this draft for them. I thought the draft of Xavier Legette was okay, the wide receiver out of South Carolina, but I did have some wide receivers ranked higher than him at the time they drafted him. I thought they reached a little bit. I also hated seeing them draft a running back at 46. Even though it's a guy out of Texas, he's had knee problems and running backs get hurt all the time. Teams that win the Super Bowl prove time and time again that you don't need a fancy running back to do it, and I feel like they reached there again. Even though they improved their offensive line in free agency, I would have liked to see them add a little bit more depth on the offensive line. A lot of times Bryce Young just looked like he was running for his life last season, and they just need to add some depth there. A Panthers fan should just be excited that they don't have to hear us talk about the Bryce Young trade anymore, because for me, that was one of the worst trades I've seen in my lifetime. Bryce Young will continue to struggle next season in my opinion, because the Panthers didn't do enough in the NFL draft to help him out. To me, this is an easy D grade. When talking about the Saints, I absolutely love their draft this year. Talise Fuaga was my favorite offensive lineman coming out of this class, and I think he's just a fantastic selection. Let's look at some clips from the Senior Bowl just to prove my point. Like, are you kidding me? This guy is an absolute game wrecker. I honestly think the Saints hit on every single pick they made in this draft. Like, for example, I love Kool-Aid McKinstry, and not just because of his awesome name. I think he's a great corner that addresses a huge need for NOLA, and I also love the Spencer Rattler pick. I think this adds depth to the quarterback position, and with how last season went, it really proved that you need that depth at that position. I truly feel like the Saints addressed every single need they had, and I don't think you can dispute the fact that this team is leaving the draft much better than when they entered. To me, this is an S tier. Texans fans should not be mad at me for this take, because I truly feel like you guys are the next up-and-coming team in the NFL. CJ Stroud is an absolute dog, and I love the Stephon Diggs acquisition in the offseason. Specifically, as a Patriots fan, I'm very happy I don't have to deal with him anymore in my division, and I also think he's just a great pickup for your team. However, I think this was a very average draft for the Texans. I thought Kamari Lassiter is an okay pick out of Georgia, and the only pick I really liked for the Texans out of this draft was Blake Fisher. So for me, this was a very C-tier draft for the Texans. The Falcons continue to make horrible decisions. Like seriously, can anybody tell me what's going on in Atlanta right now? Let me know in the comments down below. Michael Penix was my favorite quarterback going into this draft. However, this is a terrible fit because they just guaranteed Kirk Cousins $100 million. If you're worried about Kirk Cousins not performing or not being the long-term answer, why did you guarantee him $100 million? Penix was already 23 going into this draft. He was one of the older quarterbacks. And by the time he's ready to play, he'll be even older, and the team will have to decide whether they want to pay him with little evidence to do so, and likely will end up trading him.
What an idiot! Oh, what a loser!
The team already had a good offense and needed to boost their defense. And they're going to continue to get cooked on that side of the ball until they choose to make it a priority, which they definitely didn't do in this draft. To be successful in any position in life and business and football, you need good communication. And they never told Kirk Cousins their plan, which is completely ridiculous to me. As soon as Kirk begins to struggle, fans are going to call for Penix, which is going to create a huge controversy in Atlanta. They're going to lose the locker room right away. The team is in win now mode, and they totally choked away this draft the same way they choked away 28-3 to my Patriots. The Falcons are either wasting Michael Penix's talent and their first round pick, or throwing away the $100 million they gave to Kirk. It's kind of like pick your poison. Whoever made this decision needs to be fired immediately. My biggest concern for Falcons fans is that this decision was made solely by Arthur Blank. For me, you have to put the Falcons on F. They lost the draft. Now, I thought the Chicago Bears made the obvious but correct decision in selecting Caleb Williams first overall. Now, my biggest problem with this is that I didn't think they should have been in this situation anyway, because they should have kept Justin Fields and traded away the pick for capital. I talked about this briefly in my Chicago Bears video, so make sure to watch that as well if you haven't already. But you don't have to look very far, Bryce Young, to see a college quarterback who does well in college, but does not perform well in the NFL. I really like Rome Odunze. I like that pick. I thought it was okay. Him and Harrison Jr. were my top two wide receivers in this draft. However, I felt like the Bears should have beefed up their defense with this pick. They have the pick of some really great premier edge rushers and defensive tackles, and I felt like that would have served the team better. I know this is frustrating for a team that's been so stacked on defense for so long and hasn't prioritized offense, but I just think it would have been the smarter pick. This is a team who didn't even pick a defensive player until the 5th round. However, I think the offensive players they added are highly qualified to start in the NFL, and their impact will be felt right away. Overall, this was an okay draft. I think the Bears belong in the B tier. For what the Broncos are trying to do, they had a perfect draft. Bo Nix is perfect for Sean Payton's system. Just look how fast this man gets the ball off. No team is going to be able to sack him because of this release. This will improve his longevity in the NFL, and he fits perfectly with the type of offense Sean Payton wants to play. A lot of stats also pointed towards him being undervalued, and I believe the Broncos would have been happy even if they had to move up to get him. And the crazy thing is, they stayed patient and they got him without even having to move up. I also like the acquisition of the edge player out of Utah, Jonah Ellis. I thought the acquisition of wide receiver Troy Franklin out of Oregon was great, especially because he already has good chemistry with Bo Nix. I even like the running back out of Notre Dame. It seemed like a great pick at the position they drafted him. Overall, the Broncos fixed positions of need and drafted players of great value without giving up draft capital. They deserve an S grade. Now, why are the Bills still doing deals with the Chiefs? It's as if they totally forgot about the recent Patrick Mahomes trade. Anytime the Chiefs call, the Bills should either have their number blocked or just completely ignore them.
Want to see me run to that mountain and back? You want to see me do it again?
As a Patriots fan, I love this, and it's just laughable to me that they did another deal with the Chiefs when it hasn't worked out. I like Keon Coleman, even on the Patriots. I thought he would have been a good pick. But with Stephon Diggs leaving, they totally could have replaced him with a speedster like Xavier Worthy, which is exactly what the Chiefs did for themselves. I thought the Cole Bishop draft selection kept them out of an F grade for me, just because it does a good job of replacing players that have left, such as Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. But this grade is almost solely based on the trade with the Chiefs, which again I thought was laughable. The Chiefs continue to own the Bills in the draft and during the playoffs, and the clock is ticking for the Bills to win a Super Bowl with the talent they have left after trading Stephon Diggs. And as a reminder to Bills fans, you still haven't won a Super Bowl. The Bills belong in D tier. I'm sorry, Packers fans, but to me, you had a very average draft. I like the selection of Jordan Morgan for the offensive line. I thought that was okay, nothing too flashy. Edgerrin Cooper I thought was a good choice, but to me, this draft was very mediocre. This clip of this Lions fan totally clowning on this cheesehead perfectly sums up the Packers draft to me.
Been training to play on the right side as well, or at guard, so the versatility is there.
To me, the Packers deserve to be in C tier for being so mediocre. For the Dolphins, I really like the Chop Robinson selection. He was an awesome prospect in college, and I think he'll be great for the Dolphins, as much as I hate to say that as a Patriots fan. I don't think offensive tackle Patrick Paul out of Houston is going to be enough to fix their offensive line, however, and I thought it was interesting that they addressed running back, wide receiver, which weren't huge needs with how the offense performed last season, when they could have stacked depth in the offensive line. I felt like that would have been a better use of their picks. To me, for this draft, the Dolphins deserve a B tier. I thought the Rams and Sean McVay had an awesome draft. I love the pairing of teammates Verse and Fisk on the defensive line. And when you think about Michigan and what helped them win a national championship, it was their running game. Blake Corum was a huge reason for Michigan's success, and he'll be a great addition for this team. Yeah, I wish they would have gotten a corner and focused a little bit more on the offensive line a little bit earlier in the draft, but I feel like that's being a little bit nitpicky, and altogether, I feel like this team got a really solid haul for this draft. I gotta give the Rams an A. In my opinion, the Arizona Cardinals had one of the best drafts in the league this year. I would have personally hated to see them trade away the 4th pick, and I'm happy that, like the Bears, they made the obvious but correct decision in drafting Harrison Jr. Like, this guy is an absolute baller and is going to make an immediate difference for Kyler Murray on this team.
It's a long throw. It's Harrison. Nobody around. Marvin Harrison.
Like I said before, Harrison Jr. and Odunze were my top 2 wide receivers in this draft. Other than that, I think they did a great job of addressing their needs. With Kyler Murray returning next season, this team might actually be fun to watch next year. And I'm really hopeful for Cardinal fans. I think they deserve to be on the S tier for this draft. As a Patriots fan, I was really hoping that the Jets would reach in the first round for a position they didn't need. However, the Olu Fashanu pick was perfect for them. He was one of the best pass blockers in this draft, and last season proved that Aaron Rodgers needs good pass protection. They even added a quarterback, which I thought was important because last season proved how important the backup QB position is, and they already shored up the offensive line and free agency by signing Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses. This team's going to be really good in the trenches. However, I thought they should have added a second wide receiver rather than drafting 2 running backs. The whole 2 running backs thing really hurt their grade to me. They also failed to address the tight end and linebacker positions, but I thought they did well with the picks they had. So for the Jets, I think I got to give them an A. For the Ravens and John Harbaugh, I really feel like they deserve to be right up there with the Jets. I think they had an awesome draft. I really like the Nate Wiggins selection, the corner out of Clemson, and the Rosengarten pick to replace Morgan Moses. The Ravens don't really have a lot of holes on their team, so I just feel like he's a really good plug-and-play starter who can really replace Morgan Moses. They did a great job addressing their needs, and I am very scared to play a team that had this good of a draft with Lamar and King Henry in the backfield next season. The Titans are a team who made great moves in free agency, and I really wish I could say the same about their draft. I feel like they wanted Joe Alt and ended up settling for JC Latham. Devondre Sweat has off-the-field issues that may keep him from playing and become a distraction for his teammates. All in all, I thought this was a good draft as far as addressing needs, but not my favorite as far as the players they used to address those needs. To me, the Titans belong in C tier for this draft. Now, what I think is crazy about the Chargers is that Harbaugh is already making the team better. Selecting Joe Alt was the perfect decision for them in the first round, and I really feel like it's what the Titans wanted to do with their draft. Going O-line is great for protecting Justin Herbert and helping Harbaugh play the running style of offense he played at Michigan. There were other good picks, and I felt like they addressed needs fairly well. The Chargers get the grade I'm about to give them for having a near perfect first round for the style of offense they want to run. To me, I got to give them an A.
Wide open, touchdown LA.
With the Chiefs, I like the Xavier Worthy pick except for his size. One thing that concerns me is his injury risk and his ability to compete with corners who are both fast and highly physical. He is about 165, so I'd like to see him put on a little bit of weight. However, if there is a team that can make a small speedster work, it's definitely the Chiefs, and they've proven that with wide receivers like Tyreek Hill. I thought they made solid picks otherwise. I like the tight end out of TCU, Jared Wiley, and think he'll be a good fit for the team, and he's got a great mentor in Travis Kelce. Altogether, I thought this was a fairly average draft for the Chiefs. I'm thinking either C or B here. Let's see. I think I gotta put him B just for that trade with the Bills. I really feel like they won that trade again.
You can't keep getting away with it!
And it was just hilarious to watch. I think it was a really good move, and I just can't believe the Bills did that again. For the Seahawks, I did like the Byron Murphy II pick and think McDonald will be able to use him. However, I feel like McDonald is playing to his strengths rather than beefing up his weaknesses. He is a defensive guy, and I do wish he would have beefed up the offensive side of the ball a little bit more. There had just been a run on offensive players when the Seahawks selected in the first round, so I do understand the pick and still feel like they got a good amount of value out of it. It's probably what I would have done in that situation as well. But overall, I thought this was a fairly average draft for the Seahawks, and I felt like McDonald should really focus on drafting like a head coach and not like a defensive coordinator. To me, this was a B-tier draft for the Seahawks. When considering the New York Giants 2024 draft, I have to be careful because I hate this team and want them to keep drafting terribly. I will never forget what happened in the 2011-2012 season, and if I have to watch the helmet catch from that Super Bowl one more time, I'm going to break my TV. Putting my obvious bias aside, I still think the Giants had a terrible draft. Like, is Daniel Jones really the answer for you guys?
Every now and then I get a little bit terrified, and then I see the look in your eyes. Turn around, bite eyes. Every now and then I fall apart, and I need you now tonight, and I need you more than ever.
I think that the Giants should have drafted Penix or any other top quarterback with that pick. And the fact that they selected Neighbors surprised me because he wasn't even at the top of my receiver board when they drafted him. Like, who's going to throw him the ball? This season will prove that Daniel Jones is not the answer, and Giants fans can look forward to having a top pick in next year's draft to replace him.
Come on, here comes the airplane. There you go. Open into the hangar. There you go. Yep, eat it. Put it in your mouth and just eat it. God, I hate it. I don't care whether you hate it. You said you do it. All right. Eat it. Eat it.
Keep doing what you're doing, Giants. I love it. And they get an F tier. The Cincinnati Bengals had a really solid draft to me. I love the Amarius Mims and Chris Jenkins picks for the team, and the theme of this draft for the Bengals really seemed like selecting players with just a ton of upside. I do worry about the fact that Mims only started 8 games in college. That is slightly concerning to me. But one thing I did like about this draft for the Bengals was the Jermaine Burton selection out of Alabama. This will give Joe Burrow some much needed help at the wide receiver position, especially with the uncertainty surrounding T. Higgins and whether or not he's going to get traded. I also like how they spent 3 out of 4 of their first picks in the draft on building the trenches, which is something they really struggled with last season. I feel like they addressed all of their needs with some absolute dogs with a ton of upside, And with a little coaching, I feel like this draft could be truly great for them. But just the fact that they drafted some projects, it does bring them down just slightly for me. I feel like they deserve probably a high B is where I'd put them. The Detroit Lions didn't just boast a record-setting fan base attendance for this year's draft. They also did a fantastic job of addressing their biggest failure last season, which was in pass protection. They drafted one of my favorite cornerbacks in Terrion Arnold. I loved how aggressive they were in trading up to get him.
Execution.
I also liked the Rakestraw Jr. pick out of Missouri, and I was impressed that they addressed their remaining needs late in the draft by choosing an athletic offensive tackle and continuing to strengthen the defense. The Lions had a fantastic offense last year, and they really seem poised to make another Super Bowl run after this draft. Let's see, to me, the Lions, they belong in A tier. This was a really good draft for them. For the 49ers, I love the Ricky Pearsall pick because he's a fantastic athlete and will be a great target for Purdy right off the bat. Especially with the future of both Ayuk and Deebo Samuel uncertain, he'd be a great player to replace either of those players if they end up leaving in free agency. And who knows, they might not even leave. They might have all of those weapons. I also see a lot of value in selecting Renardo Green at 64. I just thought that was great value for where they were in the draft. And then I liked the offensive line depth that they added as well. I just thought they had a great draft. It seemed like they picked the right positions based on their market value. And to me, the theme of this draft for the 49ers was choosing quality to address needs given the picks they had. And to me, based on the picks that they had, I gotta give them an A. I think they did great. Now, the Cleveland Browns did not have very many draft picks due to their horrendous trade for Deshaun Watson, but to me, that does not excuse them reaching for Michael Hall Jr. He is a prospect to me that needs work, and he didn't seem to me like a game changer that would work at the NFL level. And in my opinion, why not select an offensive tackle instead? You need to protect Deshaun Watson, and the defense was already good last year. I felt like they did an okay job of addressing needs, but they did it with average players who need work. To me, this was a very D-tier draft for the Browns. How do the Eagles and Howie Roseman keep getting away with this? To me, this is an Eagles team that absolutely won the draft. Let's put them up in S right now where they belong, at the top of S, because I think they won the whole draft. I can't believe they got Quinyon Mitchell, who was my favorite corner in the draft.
Hampton rolling out. He's picked off. That's going to go for a pick six.
And they also somehow nabbed Cooper DeJean, who was a fantastic corner prospect.
Simon feels the pressure. Hit as he throws. Intercepted.
Good luck passing against this team next season. They chose high quality prospects and addressed all of their needs. They also drafted highly valuable offensive prospects late in the draft. And I just think Howie Roseman absolutely killed this draft. And I would be worried if I was the Cowboys right now. Now, the Jacksonville Jaguars needed a corner in this draft. I was surprised that they didn't take one of the Eagles selections in either Quinyon Mitchell or Cooper DeJean. However, they were able to trade back and get a good amount of draft capital, and they were still able to select a really solid wide receiver in Brian Thomas Jr. I also felt like they did a good job of addressing needs outside of what I talked about at the corner position. To me, this was a B draft for the Jags. And now we get to the grand finale, my New England Patriots. Now to me, this was a baller of a draft for my team. We picked a big physical quarterback who is accurate with a cannon of an arm.
Oh, look at this deep ball shot for J.J. Jones and caught.
It was really the opposite of Patriots drafts we've seen in the past, with 7 out of 8 of our selections being on the offensive side of the ball. It really seems like we're doing everything possible to build around Drake May. We added some of my favorite wide receivers in this draft in Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. Like, are you kidding me? This is awesome. We also got an awesome tackle in Caden Wallace out of Penn State. And I'm extremely hopeful because this was a fantastic draft for my Patriots, and I can't wait to see how these players perform next season. Let's put them up in S where they belong. This is my 2024 NFL draft tier list. In my opinion, the Eagles had the best draft of 2024, while the Falcons had the worst. Be sure to let me know in the comments down below if you agree or disagree with any of these grades. I am also a new channel, so let me know if there are any video topics you want me to cover or anything I can do to improve. I'll catch you in the next video. Did you like this video? Be sure to like and subscribe below. Also, if you like this video, I know you'll love this one.